Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens. Drama queens, drama queens.
Hey, welcome back.
God.
Episode 5, All That You Can't Leave Behind. Air date October 21st, 2003.
That was dramatic.
We had a lot of interesting stuff happen in this episode.
I'm exhausted.
Lots of
frankly.
dramatic Peyton.
It really was.
Between the basketball and the Peyton like dealing with her intense pain about her mother, and we find out so much about Whitey in this episode. Lucas wanted to change his last name. I mean, there was a lot of moving forward with storylines here. So this episode is when Lucas asks Keith to play with him in the annual father-son basketball game, which I just love. And Dan humiliates Nathan and kind of himself on the court.
It's painful.
Really himself.
Really himself more than anyone. Yeah. And really big deal that we should talk about, which is that Peyton marks the anniversary of her mother's death. And this is the famous running of the red lights episode.
My favorite part of filming this episode, and no one knows this, is that during all that stuff on the bridge with Chad and with Whitey, there was an old man whose backyard butted up to the bridge, and he hated that we were there. And he wanted no part of us there. And he would just stand in his backyard and would wait for us to yell action. And then he'd start a weed whacker. And he would just stand there. He would just stand there with the weed whacker going. And I remember just standing there for like hours with the sun bearing down on us. And we're trying to like make nightfall. And this guy is like, wait for it. Action.
Oh,
and so we sent
Did
someone.
anybody want to go tell him?
Oh, babe. We sent
go. You
multiple
sent someone
people over to him, and he would threaten them with the weed whacker like it was a sword. Yeah. So I love background
Did they tell
noise.
him the kind of scene that you were trying to film about like a young woman getting advice from her grandfatherly figure? And
We
her
were
life?
locking
ocean
up
of grief.
traffic. We were being messy. I mean, there's nothing fun about a film production coming into your neighborhood. You know, like you can't just run your errands and they're making noise and there's riffraff looking in your backyard. What if you're trying to bury a body back
giant
there?
lights.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
man.
Yeah.
It's also so interesting to me, though, that people who want to take a stand like that, and I'm gonna go ahead and just be honest. You're being very kind to said rude old man, because it's like, dude, we're just doing our jobs, and I get it. You don't like that we're here, but also you guys are up on the bridge. You weren't actually even on his street. You were like a full story above where he lived, and it's so
Bringing in money for the town.
yeah, bringing in money for the town, also creating jobs. I will never forget. Similar situation when I was working in Illinois, and there was this guy who refused to get off his porch, just wouldn't move. And he'd been really nasty to a couple of the PAs on the show. And I was like, well, let me go talk to him. Like, maybe he's also annoyed that we're like, sending over these 22-year-old kids to chat with him. He's an older gentleman. And I walked over and I just said, hey, sir, I'm the one in the scene tonight, and I want to see, what's going on. And is there any information I can give you that maybe someone else hasn't given to you? And he goes, I didn't sign off on this, and I didn't okay you to shoot the front of my house. And I said, well, we pulled a permit for the whole street, and that's something we do with the city, and it's something our location department manages. So it is legal. And just so you know, we're, all the way at the other end of the block. We can't really even see your house, but, in the shot, you kind of
Why don't you come take a look?
do you want to be an actor?
Yeah, you kind of look like a creepy ghost, just like silhouetted in these lights at the back of the shot. And it's a little unnerving to people. And, it would be cool if you wouldn't mind, since we did work with the city, if you could just not be on the porch and do us a favor, because we've got 200 people out here shooting in the middle of the night and it's cold. And he goes, well, I want $500 then. And that's when I was like, Sophia's going to be right back, and someone else is going to come talk to you for 5 minutes. And I just went, sir, to put that in perspective, our PAs make $500 a week. So if you think that you, who is standing here on the porch of a $4 million townhome in the wealthiest part of Chicago, is going to get
in a fancy neighborhood?
Oh my God. In a suit, by the way, and like a really nice jacket. And I was like, if you think we're going to give you $500 when that is money that could go to one of the kids who can't afford a warm enough jacket on our set, you're out of your mind. And then he started screaming. And I was like, well, this has been really fun. And see you later. Yes,
See you later, mister.
We don't need to put all of this in our show, but man, oh man.
Our show definitely didn't shoot in fancy pants neighborhoods. I think like Brooke's house and Nathan's house are in nice neighborhoods, but everything else is in downtown Wilmington, which is pretty, I mean, it's very diverse and certainly not anything, you know, highfalutin. They're older homes from like the 20s and 30s over where the bridge is.
Wilmington's not a fancy town. That's part of why it's so charming and so special.
And overall, everyone seemed happy.
Everyone seemed happy, but it just goes to show that it definitely was a film town because the honeymoon had worn off. They were like, we've had movies filming here for 20 years, kid. We're not
We've had
impressed
John
anymore.
Travolta here. You get out.
You're not new.
That's what it is. You're not John Travolta.
Yeah.
Who are you crying on the bridge? Get out of
my
here.
Lord. Okay, well, let's move on to some storyline stuff. So we have just Lucas confronting Haley, and is it the first time we see the golf course on the roof, or did we see that in the last episode?
No,
I feel like we
that.
saw it in the pilot, right?
Oh, in the pilot, that's right. But Lucas and Karen,
It gets bigger every time that we see it. It was like they had fun building that one out with the Christmas lights and
I know. I
AstroTurf.
wish we'd gotten to be up there more.
it was so fun up there. I don't know why they didn't continue to have us do a lot of work up there because it was such a good, unique set. I hadn't seen that in a TV show.
Well, and it's
before.
not like bogeys could come up and throw weed whackers at you on the roof. It was a safe space.
You weren't going to get chased around with lawn equipment?
Yeah.
Someone coming after you with a trimming shear?
Hedge clippers.
Oh my God. I don't remember when that went away either, because I do remember in later seasons filming up on that roof and there wasn't a mini golf course. And I remember some of us who never got to film on it were really sad when it left, but I can't remember when that was.
Yeah, I mean, I went up there to throw water
either.
balloons with you in season 5, 6. And there wasn't
a golf course up there. I wonder.
We got cheated. That's what happened.
We got cheated, damn it.
Oh, yeah.
We got cheated.
It's so weird watching this back all these years later, because this is the one like character beat that my son, who's never seen the show ever, like this is the thing that Gus knows. He's like, Peyton Sawyer sits in her car and she cries and she runs red lights. And my son knows that about the character.
Wow.
And you know, he's 11. That's just, you know, what is visible to someone who hasn't necessarily sat down and watched the show. And I think this is the beginning of where I got really uncomfortable on the show because Peyton became this like garbage bag for horrible things happening, right? But then never ever went to therapy, never like really got help. And so it starts with like her mom dying and then she's assaulted and then there are other, you know, Ellie dies and there's all these like very traumatic things happening to a child. And for me over the years, a lot of people have come up, whether it's at like conventions or just on the street. And they said, I was going through this horrible thing and your character helped me process it. And I'm like, I want to feel responsible for that. And like, great. Yes, I'm so glad that our TV show could help you through it. But also, I wish we had modeled a better response. I wish we had modeled like actually getting help, because you don't just get better on your own. You don't just kiss a boy and wake up the next day and it's all fixed, you know, like it's long-term trauma. And so I don't know, I hope that television now, you know, in 2021 is doing a better job of like making that acceptable, making it the norm. Peyton absolutely should have been in a therapist's office.
Absolutely. And Hill, I hear you on that. It's like, it's really emotional for all of us when people say, you represented X and it helped me process Y. Like that's an enormous responsibility that we don't take lightly. And it can be kind of confusing to carry, because on the one hand, you're like, I'm honored to have helped you shoulder that. And on the other, you're like, I don't know if we did this well enough.
Yeah.
But I will say, you know, in 2003, we weren't having conversations like we are now about mental health.
Yeah.
And I think even the fact that the unsaid, you know, the generally unrepresented, the quote unquote bad or negative was even being given airtime, like that someone's suffering, that it struck me watching you play those scenes and how beautifully you did. And like, I just wanted to hug that little girl. Like, you just look like such a sweet baby, just crying in that car. And like, it broke my heart because you made it so clear that this kid was in the ocean of grief. And that's what grief is. It's so big. It can feel unending and it comes in waves. And I felt for you so much. And then like the camp counselor part of my brain was like, oh no, we modeled running red lights for kids.
Oh my God, right?
And
it was
when
just a
when we were
caricature.
watching, and when the three of us were watching, guys, and this feels really important to highlight for all of you at home, we were all kind of taken aback because what you don't see, obviously, in a show that's edited and made to make you
like
have an
43
emotional
minutes.
response.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see that on every one of those side streets. There were cop cars, barricades, lockups, PAs. Like, we shut the streets down so that you could drive on an empty road through red lights. And
For a visual.
for the visual. And
yeah,
the
just to drive the point home. It wasn't really, they thought of it
It's
as
a metaphor.
Yeah.
It hurts so bad.
Right.
Don't do this at home.
Right.
Yeah, and you weren't actually wildly running red lights. That was all set up. And it kind of hit us like, oh God. Looking back, you go, well, what does that mean? God forbid we ever encouraged, someone to do that. God forbid, like I said a couple episodes ago, I encouraged people to get naked in back seats. Please don't do it. There's me having to make a joke because I'm feeling very emotional and uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, but babe, just the weight of it at 21 years old is like, what am I responsible for?
But you hit
right
the nail
now?
on the head, Hilarie, with saying that because characters have to have flaws. They have to have deep moments. And, that's what people loved about the show is that they were just feeling their feelings and going through it. But the fact that we didn't model the taking care of your mental health, of Peyton sitting down with a therapist and somebody walking her through that grief, and the idea for me of my daughter being that age and feeling so much grief that she would put her life in that kind of danger to just like, I'm verklempt. I don't know how to process this. It's yeah, go ahead.
It's heavy for a teen show. I mean, it started off about like basketball, And so I think also part of the reason I have since then portrayed myself as such a goober when I'm being Hilarie Burton is because Peyton Sawyer was so dark and so anguished and sad that I felt like I had to overcompensate, in real life in doing interviews. Even now, I'm always the first person to be like, okay, this feels like a lot. Let's get out of this. Because I was scared of that, like you said, Sophia, that ocean of grief. I certainly have lost people in real life. I know the people I was thinking about when we filmed these things. And it's heavy. We also talked about, when we watched the episode back, how Craig Sheffer dealt with this very same thing of doing a risky behavior in a production, in the program. How old were we? Were we in middle school when that came out? We were young.
I think so. We were really young. I didn't even see it until years. I mean, it was like an old movie.
I've never seen the program.
Oh man, it's beautiful.
Well,
it's about a high school football team.
Okay.
Right? And I just remember being all over the news. The news was saturated with it because in the movie, these boys had laid down on the road as like a dare or something. And some kids emulated that and were killed in real life. And I remember thinking about it, like when we were doing the running the red light thing, just like, God, like this is, I wish I'd talked to Craig about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, they didn't have the placards back then that would come up before the show. This episode is triggering, deals with trauma. Please don't emulate the things, the characters, blah, 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 all that stuff that comes up now. We weren't doing that back then. So, you were right to be nervous.
I think the program might have been one of the reasons that shows started to say we did this with stunt drivers and on closed sets. And those placards came up because, people used to see something and go, oh, they just went out and did that. now we have a lot more transparency behind how productions work.
Yeah.
And even to the point of the conversation, there's more transparency behind and around mental health, around, I mean, the fact that we can even speak about trauma now. We weren't doing that 20 years ago. It was very brown paper bag, bottom shelf. And I'm so relieved that we live in a time and in a moment where people are being met where they are and where vulnerability is understood to be a strength. Thank you, Brene Brown. Not that you're listening, but if you are, we love you.
Hey, girl.
And
You know what I loved is that Peyton did get therapy of sorts by talking with Whitey so much in this episode, and that grandfatherly figure that, again, we said, wow, could never happen. You could never have a older male coach spending any time alone with a young female student. It would just be wildly inappropriate. And in most cases it is, but I think we're on a show and it's all romanticized
With
in
the
a new
right
way.
chemistry,
With the right,
it is loving.
Yes.
The way he talks, I think it's because Whitey's talking about Camilla.
Yeah.
it's very safe.
Cuts the creep factor
Completely.
out that might exist in
Yeah.
other productions. Whitey so dearly loves his wife
Yeah.
and misses her in the same way Peyton misses her mother.
And having a
those
grandfatherly
scenes-
figure, like a male
Yeah.
figure who is positive in her life, I think was also really important.
It also
way
shows
that
how
he-
unmoored she is, though, that she doesn't have a mom, she doesn't have a dad, she doesn't have a grandma or a grandpa or anybody. She's got to go to the high school basketball coach. Like this dude, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Without saying any of that, it speaks volumes.
Yeah, and it was such a beautiful, I think, choice in the story arc of the episode to have Whitey stand in for her dad, and in a way, it felt, at least as a viewer, like Peyton probably hadn't been able to really process the loss of her mom with her father, but being able to be with Whitey, who'd also lost his wife, they could share in it. And sometimes it is a little easier to be more vulnerable with someone who's not quite as close to you. And him being that fatherly figure in the episode, there's so much of this kind of mirroring of father figures in this one with Whitey for you,
God, you're making a great point.
with Craig, with Keith for Lucas. I mean, him saying, Lucas having this question about whether or not he's going to change his name because of what it represents, because of Dan Scott, and Keith reminds Lucas that it's his name too, and that it's a thing they share, and that family can be who you choose. I mean, it's so beautiful, and so you get those two kind of being the best of it, and then you get Dan Scott being absolute, like, just piggish worst. Oh, I mean, him on the basketball court.
It's a different kind of mental problem, like the
It
grief
is.
and the anguish are one thing, and then that ego.
The ego and the obsession with the glory days can really be so toxic. Like you get great masculinity in Whitey and in Keith, and you get true toxic masculinity in Dan Scott.
I love being able to see the both of them too.
The two of Paul and Barbara in that scene where he's talking about the glory days was probably one of my favorite scenes of the episode, because you see why she loved him. He's fun. You can see why she will hate him.
Yeah.
Like it's a microcosm of the whole show in that one scene. And it also like kind of foreshadows all the problems that the Scott boys have in their future relationships.
Yeah. I mean, that moment, the foreshadowing when she and Barbara played it so beautifully because she didn't freak out. You just see it land, and she takes a half a breath and says, better than, I mean, I don't remember the exact line, but essentially, better than now, better than knowing me, knowing your son. And you just go,
And he says, it was different.
after that pause,
Good,
that pregnant
different.
pause. Oh, God.
Joy, you'd stab him. Honestly, like, what would you do if your partner said that? Man, apparently I slam doors. That's my thing.
I would,
Every door in the house would be off its hinges.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I would leave the room and probably never go back. I don't know that I could handle that.
See, everyone assumes I'd scream and yell because Brooke Davis was a good yeller. You know, she could throw it. She could throw a thing really well. I just get really quiet. And the more quiet I get, the more trouble you're in.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And it's like, okay, I'm just going to go for a walk.
Oh God.
There will be poison in your coffee in the morning.
That's such
You
a
will
good...
wake up with no eyebrows and know that you did it to yourself.
That's such a good mom tool, by the way. Yeah, the quieter I get, the more Maria's like, what? Mom, what?
Oh, poor baby. Say something, please.
Oh, man. Guys, can we just love on Deb just more?
I love her.
Yeah.
Such a boss.
Being a boss and a baddie. Deb Scott, I think, is the only mom who also wore Juicy Couture tracksuits in fancy velour like we did, girls.
Yeah.
Wait,
When
guys,
she
red
comes on in
velour.
this episode in that red juicy outfit, we all started screaming.
Are we bringing them back?
I mean, I'm not
I'm
opposed.
down.
I'm not opposed to it.
Down.
I love
With
a
the Uggs,
tracksuit.
you have to wear them with Uggs.
And the spaghetti strap tank top underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should we have an exciting guest today
my
who can
God.
talk to us a lot more about that juicy tracksuit.
There might be
Should we
someone
bring
we all
her
have
in,
a crush
girls?
on.
Get her in here.
Get her in.
Bring me some Deb. Where's Barbara Alyn Woods?
Barbara.
Ding, 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 ding.
Barbara, can you hear me? There you are. Hi.
You look beautiful, Barbara.
You're so beautiful. You don't age. Holy smokes.
Hi, gorgeous. Hi.
We
Hi.
miss you.
Ah,
Are you calling us from a trailer? Are you on set today? What's going on?
where are you? Oh, no.
I knew this was going to happen.
Hi.
I love you. Hi.
We love you so much.
Where
Hi.
are you?
Okay, so this is the first day ever, I think, that I've sent my daughter off to work alone. She's working. I'm not working today because of you guys. Thank you so much. No, I'm not working today. Well, I'm working. I'm doing this.
This is a better gig. This is fun.
Hi. Wait, where are you guys? What are you working on?
So I'm in Toronto with Allie, and we're working on a show together.
Tell us everything about the
so
show.
exciting.
We'll get back into
playing
One Tree
her
Hill,
mom.
but I want to know what's going on
Okay,
right now.
Yeah.
so Hilarie, you know this about us. Maybe you all do, but you know, our family is way into like horror, the horror genre,
Yeah.
horror, anything. And this opportunity came up for Allie to do this show, Chucky.
Yes.
And so it's based on the puppet, the doll, Chucky. And it's, you know, about his origin story. And she plays the mean girl, which she's never done. And she was thrilled to do. And then when she was cast, the producers came to me and said, you know, hey, you know, we need the mean mom. And do you want to play her mom? And so, yeah, we've been in Toronto since March and we're doing a show together.
That is such a dream gig.
What a dream.
And I'm
Yeah.
playing the mayor,
I love
which is so full circle.
it. Yeah, Deb should have been the
yes.
mayor.
Deb should have always been the mayor.
Oh, yes. Why did that not happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're having
yeah.
a great time.
Oh my gosh.
I can't
this is
believe that
incredible.
Olivia's old enough to be working because one of my favorite memories of Barbara on the show was in my last season, and I knew that I was cutting out. And Barbara asked me to drive her to a doctor's appointment while she was pregnant with Olivia to get her amnio done. And so they like did the whole scan of the belly and like,
And you were so intrigued. You were so into it.
I wanted
You had a
that.
lot of questions. You had a
Well,
lot of questions. Yeah.
It was so special. I felt really honored that you asked me to like drive you. And it was such a cool thing because I'd never seen a doctor's appointment.
I didn't ask you to drive me. I wanted you to be there with me. And it was bonding. It was bonding for us.
It was a really special experience. And so then when I got pregnant, like 6 months later, I
know.
I like sent Barbara a message. I was like, hey, I have a friend who's having a baby. And what was the name of that doctor? And you were like, well, you can tell your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't slick, but it was just such a special It was such a special memory. And so to see all of your girls taking over all of television is just insane.
It's so cool.
They're the new generation.
Yeah, they are. They are who you guys were during One Tree Hill. And that's why I feel like this is such great timing for me because, you know, they're going through a lot of the things that I've been listening to your I'm so proud of all of you. So proud. And I love the podcast and I'm learning even more about you guys. And the fact that you went through so much and that you were all the picture of confidence. Never once did I ever realize you were having any self-doubt at all, even for a second.
Wow.
And that makes me sad in a way because I feel like if I could go back, I would have, my doors were always open, but I would have said to all of you, please come to me. You know, I've been around for a while. Please come to me but you didn't seem like you needed any advice.
Yeah, that's just sort of our makeup individually as people. We were, we really wanted to have it all together and we didn't want anybody to know that we were struggling. And maybe different girls would have, but I know each of us individually we were all a little stubborn in our own ways and probably just didn't want to admit that we didn't know what to do. But your door was always open, Barbara. I mean, you were the mom that none of us had down there in that environment. My God, you helped me put my cat down. I remember you came over that day and you were there with me when I had to put my cat down. And I was like, who do I want with me? And I remembered it was just so clear. I need mom. I need Barbara. And you were that for us in every way. So no, please don't think that we didn't come to you for any reason that we didn't feel comfortable with you. It was totally just us needing to, I don't know, feel like we were taking care of everything.
Remember, we were adults, guys. We were totally grown ups.
You were. Right. And now I see my daughters being adults, but they're your age. And I know they must be going through that same, growing up experience of being alone for the first time. And, and Gossip Girl, Emily's doing Gossip Girl.
How crazy is that?
That's so insane.
Full circle. So she's doing the first season and I compare it to the first season of One Tree Hill. I mean, it's pretty crazy how life comes around,
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's different for these kids now than it was for us, 18 years ago?
No, I don't think it's different. In terms of just growing up in general, I don't think it's different. But first of all, she's on HBO. And so, that can be a little scary. When she booked the job, she was 17 and she thought,
just like James.
HBO. Yeah, HBO can be a little scary. It's Gossip Girl. So it's going to be a lot of,
risque
romance
stuff. Yeah.
But she was 17. She said, oh, no problem, because they can't have me do anything anyway. Well, quarantine happened and the show got pushed. And so when she started working, she was 18. Okay.
That's hard to figure out what your boundaries are going to be and what you want to allow, out there in the public in terms of your body or what situations you want to put yourself in as an actress. And it's different for everyone, but it's hard to figure that stuff out when you're a young woman.
And I've told her stories about you guys and your questions, and don't ever be afraid to question. And, I'm glad that she has me to turn to, but it's also gives me the responsibility of giving her the correct advice, so it's tough for young women.
You have always done that for people though. And it strikes all of us, we were saying on our last recording that we're basically just the Barbara Alyn Woods fan club because all we're doing is fawning over you in these episodes. And I think it struck all of us in our own way that we know you to be that woman in life, but we forgot, because none of us remembers 2003, my God. We forgot what you were doing on screen. And the way that you play Deb, it just feels clear that you brought yourself and your Barb heart to her, because she's so wise and she holds lines for people and does it with tenderness. And you challenge people to be better. And I don't know, you're able to do so much with her. And we're obsessed with you.
Thank you for that. And I say all of that in season 1. And then she sort of had a downward spiral.
It was such a crazy arc.
Which I loved.
So fun. So fun. Well, we want to talk. So let's talk a little bit about first of all, how you got the role of Deb. Was it just a random audition? Did you know it? I mean, like, how did that come about? And then also, once you were into the part and you had to be, okay, so she's the breadwinner. She's clearly feminist and in charge of so much in her life and her family's life. And yet balancing this egomaniacal husband who's a giant man-child, and you've got a teenage boy, and you're like holding everyone's emotions and trying to manage so much. I mean, what was that like? Just tell us about this experience of becoming Deb.
Okay. So I don't even know if I've ever shared this story, but Emily was one. So I have 3 girls. Emily's the middle, and she was 1. I was still nursing her. I was working on a show called American Dreams on NBC. And I had a nice little recurring role. It was perfect because I wanted to be a mom. This was my lifelong dream. I mean, I had tunnel vision when it came to my career, but being mom was number one by far. And so I was recurring on, it was perfect blend of being a mom. And I was still nursing. And when I nurse, man, I mean, you guys have seen me. It's not a pretty sight.
I mean,
it's like
depends on who you ask.
Well, like cover of Jugs magazine, like pornographic.
Oh my God, I love it.
So I'm nursing, and I refused to pump because I think that was my excuse to never be away from the baby. So I would have someone bring the baby to the set and everything. So it was a lot of work, and the last thing I wanted was a full-time gig. But then this audition came up for One Tree Hill, and I said, I don't have time. I'm working and I don't have time. And then I started reading it over lunch and fell in love with this beautifully written monologue for this character. And I couldn't let it go. And it was just, with the casting director being put on tape because the show was already airing and they were going to bring in this character for this small arc. There's no way I could travel, they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go in and do it. And I just couldn't get Deb out of my mind. I had not even seen the entire script. I just knew that it was beautifully written, this character. And then I heard that I was in the mix, which means being considered. Then I heard that they were going local for the role.
Oh, interesting.
And I was pissed. And I told my agent that I'm going to find a relative who lives near North Carolina and I'm going to be a local. And she said, you can't. I said, no, I'm doing it. I'm going to do that. And I found a cousin who I'd never met.
What?
Gave them my address and said, this is where I'm local. I was within, I think it's 250 miles or something. I don't know, something crazy, but I had the address. And they set up a meeting with Paul on the weekend, and it was just me. And I came in, I read, and it was instant connection. And so they hired me as a guest star local.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Couple episodes. And the Fincannons, you remember that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
They were amazing, and they, helped me out. I think they put me up even though I was a local.
Anybody who doesn't know, the Fincannons were our local casting directors who were basically situated right there at the studio. Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah. And so, the rest is history then, they ended up keeping the character around. But so I love telling actors this story because, if you know something and instinctually you're thinking this is your thing, just go for it and do what you need to do. So that's what happened. And then they ended up making her a regular.
It's so cool to me how, Deb is clearly a confident woman, but then there's also this really sexy element between her and Dan in this episode, because it would be so easy to show like a combative thing. Like he's so loathsome that for his wife to come in and be affectionate with him, but also hold him accountable is just a really nice duality that not everybody could have pulled off, Barbara. Like you handled that.
You see, like I said, the spiral of not only Deb, but their relationship. I think she does figure out who he truly is. But, also the parallel of the way Nathan treats his girls.
Yeah.
There's so many parallels in the show, and I maybe am only seeing them for the first time watching the show now. But I think some of that had to do with Paul and I just getting along really well too. I mean, it was easy for me to bring that warmth because I really liked Paul.
Yeah.
And he made me laugh. And I think Dan made Deb laugh, and they had history. And, he was lovable.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was wondering, at one point we were watching and I said, why did she marry this guy? Ugh.
Yeah.
But, when you see him being tender with Deb in the moment about basketball, then it goes south. But, you could see a little hint of that.
Yeah.
And he's cute.
Of course. Oh, well, that's that. Yeah.
I'm not even sure I knew how cute he was then. I mean, I know he was always good looking, but I'm watching it now going, you're cute.
Super cute. That pout. Oh my God.
He was.
Those
So
lips.
he was the Diet Coke man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh my
right.
God.
Oh my God. You know what struck me, Joy, when you asked that question? It kind of lit up for me in that scene before he ruins it and, says it was different. But when he's talking about his athleticism and giving us the window into why it matters so much to Dan, and he talks about what it felt like and how, everything would be quiet and it was just the court. And he says, I wish you could have seen it. Something in my brain was like, ding, ding, ding. And it reminded me of in the last episode when you go to see Karen at the cafe and you say, I know that's your story, but it doesn't have to be ours. I feel like Deb existed in this pocket right after Dan's kind of glory days, but also some of the harm he did. And there's a tenderness between Deb and Dan that no one else has with him. And you claim it, but you do it really gently. And it allows for this romance, and it allows for you to find him funny. And then when you kind of throw the gauntlet down, you do it embodied as Deb in this way that is so firm, but it's gentle. And it's like some real acrobatics. And I wonder if maybe that slight difference in timing just gave her a different experience with him than anybody else had.
Did they tell you what Deb's backstory was?
Yeah, no. I don't know. I think I made up a backstory, and I think Paul and I talked about it. It's great working with him because we were always talking about things like that. But I don't even know to this day if I really know the math of where Karen stopped and where Deb took over. I don't know if it was an overlap. I don't know if she was a rebound. I'm not even sure about that. I mean, there was something that Karen found attractive in him too. And she even seems a lot more level-headed and intelligent than Deb. So what is it with intelligent women who fall into men like this?
Isn't that the truth?
Girl.
Isn't that the truth? We've
Let's
all
talk
done
about
it.
it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it.
Yeah. I should not be throwing stones. I'm in a glass house.
Well, Peyton with Nathan, we're all watching, saying, why? Get out of there, quick, run. Yeah. And, who knows? The heart wants what the heart wants. And
well, it's also, I guess I'm realizing too that Dan has never been in this situation with Lucas. That whole thing is a new threat for him. So maybe this is like a part of him that's coming out that nobody's really seen a lot of before because he's never been in this scenario before.
Am I crazy? I feel like I was told that Deb came from money. And so she was so much more powerful and her family was more powerful than Dan. And it was her family that bankrolled the dealership. Did that end up like becoming?
Yes, I think that was part of it. I think you're right.
Because I'm watching this like girlfriend's in charge. Like, yes, her daddy is like the boss.
Yeah. So Dan married Deb for money.
Not even for money, but the allure of like being with a maid girl. Like Dan, I can see how that would put him in his place because you present yourself like a girl who knows exactly who she is and always has. And I'm sure freshman year in college, that was Foxy.
And maybe the antithesis to who Karen was at the time.
Yeah.
And which makes her, back to her spiral, even more interesting that she started out as strong as she was. And even I forgot, that many seasons later, watching it now, keep pointing to the television because this is where I was watching it. I had forgotten how strong she was. I'm like, whoa, Deb, what happened to you? And, even later on, I'm not supposed to talk about later on, am I? Well, anyway.
We do what we want.
We do what we want here.
Yeah.
We'll have you back later on and talk about
Okay,
that.
all right, good. Okay.
What was your relationship with James like playing his mom? He was 17.
Oh my God, he's so raw.
I instantly loved him. He was just a sweetheart. And what I tell this story a lot too, what I loved about James is he was not afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
He was new, and he wasn't even that new by the time I was working with him. He had already done the pilot in a few episodes, but if anything came up, he had questions. And look at him now.
Yeah.
It was all about learning, camera work. Why are we doing this? Why are you putting that light there? He was always asking questions and came to work so prepared and was so respectful. And even sometimes had a hard time joking around with me because he was so respectful. And I was like his mom, and, he had to talk to me like his mom.
Aww.
And he was so sweet. Yeah. He was 17, right?
Yeah, he was little.
17.
And I remember, I love this story because he's so tall, and when I hugged him, and sometimes I'm a touchy person, and I would touch his chest like, my baby, my baby. And the network gave me a note, called my agent and said, we want her to stop touching his chest. It's because it just seems a little bit too close for a mom. Like,
God.
Oh my God, my son, I have my son in a headlock at all times.
Oh, yeah. Just like for Deb to be touching like his chest, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry if I crossed a line, but man.
All that makes me think of whoever at the network gave that note. I go, were you never hugged as a child?
Well, yeah.
Are you
what I was
okay?
thinking too.
Well, remember,
women
they
must
also
only touch men in a sexual way.
They recast the guy that played my dad season 1 because they were like, you two are too flirty. And I was like, what? I mean, okay. But yeah, so that was something that was really on their radar, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, maybe because they were all inviting us out
Freudian
to
weirdness. That's on them, not us.
That's probably exactly
You
why.
often see what you do, not what exists. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That's
Is
what
it
I
too
was
far?
afraid to
Ew.
go. Gross.
I was afraid to go near him after that. I don't want to go too close.
Oh,
That's terrible.
I know,
What a
I
terrible
know.
thing for an actor. You want to be so free and be able to just be and explore and touch and fight and be tangible and
but you were such
hard.
you were such a mom behind the scenes as well, and I loved that you always had your girls in the trailer. Your girls were in the hair and makeup trailer from the time they were toddlers. Which is probably why they're so good at what they do now.
Why they wanted to do what they do now. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's
great.
This is fun. I want to do this.
They've worked with so many of us on other projects too. Like I worked with Emily on Secret Life of Bees. Which one of the girls did the movie with Chad?
Emily
did.
Allie just did a movie with Austin.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Allie did
that's so
right at the
cool.
end of quarantine. They worked together. I never worked with Austin, so I got to know him during that movie.
Cool.
Cheryl Lee played Emily's grandmother.
What?
There you go.
In the
That's so
movie.
weird and full circle.
Wow.
And Cheryl Lee and I were just
So-
like the entire time. Emily's like, do you mind? Can I get to know her too? We were just like the entire time. Yeah, I was trying to think. Allie worked with Jackson.
What?
No way.
On like 3 years on a show. Allie was recurring and he was
Whoa.
regular. And so we saw his family all the time.
Awesome.
Peter Kowalski was Natalie's DP on a Marvel show. I mean, we've had so many crossovers. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember I remember Natalie coming in the trailer and in the first, she would just come in with her giant brown eyes and her freckles and their cute little blonde hair. And she would just smile at you with this beautiful beaming smile. And her face was like a sunflower. It was just like the sunlight. I just loved looking at her face, looking up at us. And then Emily would come in with her husky little voice. It's like 2-year-old.
She had a Sophia voice as a baby.
I know. I loved it. I was like, are you mine? Come sit with me.
Yes, I love it.
It was so fun for us too, Barbara, that energy, because you're right. We were all out there and we were little kids who thought we were supposed to be grown-ups. And when you would come in with the kids and we'd all be in the trailer in the mornings, it really felt like family.
Yeah.
It felt like home. Like to be sitting, having JoJo do hair and holding one of your kids in our laps and chatting. It was like, it was the most
home
kind
time.
of, it was the most wholesome, like safe. It was such a gift to have your family on set that way.
That means
with you.
so much.
Truly.
When I watch the show, it brings back so many memories of doing the show. It was such a happy time in my life. Hopefully the best is yet to come. Who knows? But that decade, was just the happiest time, possibly the happiest. And it was because I was on a show I loved with people I love and a character I loved. And then also having my little kids living on the beach, Wrightsville Beach. There's nothing better than Wrightsville Beach. It was just happy. I felt like I must have done something good.
Yes, somewhere in my wicked childhood. Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
Yes. Somewhere in my wicked childhood, I must have done something good. Yeah.
Bringing back the musicals. I watch your podcast. And we watched Sound of Music during the hurricane when we all had to hunker down in hotel rooms. We watched Sound of Music over and over. And that's all we did. We watched Sound of Music.
Maria's school is doing that. That's their next play this spring, to Sound of Music. No. I'm like, can I take the role of Maria away from a high school student? Could I try?
Do it. If you need a baroness, let us know.
Yeah. Movie and see. It's a school-wide production, so they are going to have, all through high school, through kindergarten. So I guess she's 10. Does that make her, she's too old for Gretel. Not
Louisa.
Liesel, she's too young for. Louisa.
Louisa.
Yeah, probably.
Louisa.